Welcome to the Serving Second podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Toussaint Williams. I spent over 20 years serving as an assistant, as associate, as a vice, and now I have the opportunity to share those gifts with you. Thank you for being a part of the journey. This is where individuals in the second seat can create first place outcomes. Let's dive in.
You ain't gotta finish first to get your first place prize. Don't need the front row just to let your light shine. The highest place of honor, serving at the lowest point. The power's in the voice, and you ain't gotta make no noise. They might say you finished last, but you still got the power. It's your time. Your gifts will last. Serve second. Still lead. It's your
Welcome to the Serving Second podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Toussaint Williams. And here at Serving Second, I teach individuals how to lead from the place where you serve. We recognize that life sometimes has unique ways of putting us in leadership positions. And that leadership position isn't always the person that sits in that first seat. It's not always the president or the CEO. Sometimes the way God has aligned it is that we can lead from the second chair. We can lead serving in the second seat. And in doing so, we have an opportunity, a unique opportunity to hone our gifts, to provide organizational clarity, and to share with the rest of the world that you don't always need the spotlight to make a major impact. Today's episode is something a little bit different. As you can see, I'm excited because I'm standing up. I'm here. For those who are listening, I'm literally standing on my feet, excited because I've been doing some ruminating, some thinking, some processing on some of the past episodes. And I realized, man, I don't want to just process these things and continue moving or just putting it in the sphere in which I work and not allowing the listeners, not allowing you guys who have been a major part in this journey to walk alongside me, to get some background information to some of the things I'm thinking. One of the episodes that really hit me was my conversation with Seth Yelorda. You know, Seth is the director of Vision Clarity, and his main focus is making sure people and organizations have this clarity of what direction they're supposed to go. And as I was listening to his presentation, I'm in the interview, but I'm processing. I was like, wait a second, what if you're going through life or in your sphere of service and you don't have that clarity? You may have gotten your position based on a great resume, or somebody put you in that position, or people voted you to that position, or other individuals said you would really be good in serving in this area. Well, today I want to break down some key points that really resonated with me and allowed me, after listening to that podcast, to kind of find a greater sense of purpose. And I don't want to just do this by myself. I don't want to just get this aha moment. I want to walk you through some of the things I was thinking about over the past couple of weeks so that you can get to that same point as well. I firmly believe that an individual that understands who they are, understands their purpose, and sees how it can make an impact in their sphere of influence as you're serving second will completely change the game. So this reaction episode is about clarity, but not just organizational clarity. When we talked to Seth, he made a point that hit me really hard. Clarity starts with me. Seth said, clarity is not only an executive level responsibility. It's not just something we check off as one of the things we have to do. It is what he calls personal discipline. So here's a unique challenge with me. I am terribly undisciplined in certain areas. There's some areas where discipline is a great strength, but because of my giftedness, and one of the things I'm learning, and my wife and I have discovered this term called multi-potentialite. And that means individuals that are gifted in a number of areas. And one of the great blessings of individuals like this is that you can do a number of things well. In fact, you may be able to be that person who, when you're trying to figure out what to do for college, it was a challenge because you could do medicine, or you could be a lawyer, or you could be a an auditor or a number of other professions, and you can do them all well. And the reality is, for some people, it can be so challenging that you think, man, there's something wrong with me. No, it's actually a gift. But one of the things about that gift is being able to hone it in a way that it does not halt you from doing what you've been called to do. And that's why this is so important. That's why this journey with Seth was so powerful for me, because it forced me to sit down and identify that clarity is not just an executive level responsibility. Clarity is not just something I need to have from an organizational perspective when I'm sharing our mission and our vision and our values. No, clarity is something that I need to have. And when I'm able to hone into the gifts and the skill and the direction God has for my life, it completely changes all other factors and everything else that's going on. And that matters even more because as a person who serves in the second chair, as a person who sits in the second seat, we see as second chair leaders sometimes do one of two things. One will blame the individual in the first chair for being unclear. We'll say, well, my president didn't, or my boss didn't do this. And it's easy to put the blame on somebody else. It's easy to say, well, they didn't provide clarity, or they were really muddy when it came to how they were communicating. Or we'll do the other thing. Instead of blaming somebody else, we will try to overcompensate. Will compensate so hard that it leads to burnout. And family, neither one of them is sustainable. You cannot grow by blaming other people, nor can you grow by trying to do so many things that you burn out and use your best resources, your best energies on something that's not prospering you and something that's growing you. I want to provide three things for you so that you could see several of the things that I wrestled with and how it really helped me make a difference and unlock some of my best days that I firmly believe that are going to be ahead of me. So first one is, I want to let you know, one of the things I learned is that you cannot bring clarity to others if you're unclear about yourself. You cannot bring clarity to other people. You cannot provide focus to others if you yourself are not clear. This is one thing I got from our conversation with Seth, is that he defined clarity as a discipline of knowing where you're going and who you must become every day to lead yourself and others toward that future. And this is the first thing that really kind of helped me see how to move forward. This thing was not just clarity as a discipline of knowing where I'm going, but you've got to become a different person every single day. You've got to work and use the gift and the time that you have to be somebody better than you were yesterday. And I said in previous episodes, I am a competitive person. Man, I can play basketball for hours. Well, I used to be able to play basketball for hours because I wanted to show other people that they weren't better than me. But one of the things as I got older and my knees and my Achilles no longer wanted to cooperate, I learned that I can't focus all of my attention on trying to be better than others if I don't realize I've got to grow every day to be better than myself. And one of the biggest challenges of success is that you rely on your past gifts and your past skills. And I want to challenge somebody who's watching or somebody who's listening. You are where you are because you have certain innate gifts, or you read certain books, or you have certain skill set that got you to where you are. But one of the things I love about this, and I want to make sure that you understand what Seth was saying, and one of the things I gleaned was that as great as you are, you've got to become better every day to get clarity for yourself so that you can lead not just others, but yourself toward a future that's better and that's brighter. In fact, the Bible says this way: whatever your hands find to do, do it with all your might. Not just live on what you did yesterday or when you were in college. No, you've got to recognize there is a heavy weight on skilled and proficient individuals because it is a real thing that you've got to be intentional about growing every single day. And I want to make it practical because second chair leaders this role will often expose you. If you're not clear of what your gifts are, what your triggers are, what your strengths are, your limits, your blind spots, you will start doing one of these things. One, you'll overfunction. You try to do too many things all the time. Or you may find yourself trying to people please, where anytime anybody asks you to do anything, yes, I'll make sure I do it, or yes, I'll do something. And one of the things we've got to understand, in fact, I saw an interview by Trevor Noah, and he was saying because he had ADHD, he has to lead with no. And that doesn't mean you don't want to help people, but because we're naturally serving, as people who serve second, we always want to make sure we're naturally helpers. We want to help individuals. So if you can, people will ask, we're naturally helpers and we want to try to make sure that everybody else is good. But when you kind of lead from no, is what Trevor Noah was saying, is that it allows you to focus on where you need to say your yeses. So first thing we sometimes do is overfunction, or next thing is people please. And then the next one, I want to make sure I don't go too fast at this, is leading from insecurity. And what that simply means is we're trying to protect ourselves from being hurt or being vulnerable. And when that happens, we are never the best of ourselves, and we're always trying to prove ourselves because we're unsure of our calling, we're unsure of our gift, and that sometimes bleeds out in how we lead others. And we mentioned this earlier, one of the biggest challenges when you're not clear is quietly resenting your leader for what they are not doing. Family, one of the gifts that you have is to be able to serve, and serving that leader. In fact, when you serve second, that is one of the gifts, the unique gifts that God has given us. But it's easy to have dissension and this idea of not having clarity. You'll begin to resent your leader for what they are not doing, rather than taking ownership and saying, what can I do and how can I lead from my desk? Our CFO, Sonia Creighton, always talks about this idea of what can you do? How can you lead from your desk? And I love that idea because it's not saying that other people don't have responsibilities, but there is a leadership perspective and a leadership role that I have where I can lead from my desk. So the first clarity question is not what's the vision. The first clarity question is, who am I in this vision? Gotta slow down and ask the question, who am I in this vision? How do my gifts and my skill set and my ability to make a difference where I am, how can I fit best in this vision? And this ties directly to what we've been building on in the story of Jonathan. Those who were with us from episode 1, you recognize there was a story, the Bible story in 1st and 2nd Samuel, where David, we know the one who wrote the 23rd Psalm, when that David became king, Jonathan, Saul's son, who was king of Israel, he recognized that he could not be king and David be king at the same time. So Jonathan chose to serve. Jonathan could serve with strength because he was secure. He understood where he was in the journey, and he wasn't trying to compete for the spotlight. He wasn't fighting for the crown. He knew who he was and what he was called to do in that season. That's why he could be loyal without losing himself. So here's your first reflection prompt. That's right, there's a little bit of homework in this episode. The first reflection prompt is this. Pause and answer this. Do it honestly. Maybe you want to pause this and grab your journal or take some notes in your phone. What is yours to clarify right now? Not your organization, not your leader, not the whole team, you. What do you know about yourself that you've been ignoring? What do you need to admit about your leadership style? And where are you unclear? Those questions will provide clarity and give you a level of depth that is necessary to answer some of these questions and make you settled in your area of giftedness and your area of service. Because when you provide that clarity for yourself, it helps you lead others? As you're answering those questions, next thing I want you to do is I want you to write down these 3 sentences. 3 sentences you're going to write down. First sentence is, here's what I'm good at. I can wake up in the morning. You could wake me up at 3 in the morning and I do this. You could cut me open and I bleed service. I know for personally that when I'm in an area with great leaders, I can make them shine. I have the ability, the unique ability to walk behind somebody with vision and make that a reality. Question number 2. Here's what drains me. What is that thing or those things that cause you to dread? With you sometimes like me will put it off because you don't feel like dealing with it. What is that thing or what are those things that drains you? And then number 3, here's what I'm responsible for in my current role. Here's what I'm responsible for in my current role. That one exercise can reduce confusion by a lot. It allows you to settle in with what you're good at, some of the things you don't want to do, and those are some things you may want to identify people to assist you in. And then how does that work in your role? This second takeaway was a little unique, so I want to slow down and make sure I'm reading it properly. For individuals who serve in the second seat, clarity is translation, trade-offs, and today's priorities. Toussaint, what do you mean? Well, I'm glad you asked. Seth said something that second chair leaders need to hear. You may not set the destination, but you are responsible for translating it. Let's say it one more time because sometimes I talk really fast. You may not set the destination, but you are responsible for translating it. That's your lane. As somebody who serves in the second seat, your lane is clarity through execution. But you cannot execute properly without understanding the vision. That's why translation is so important. You've got to hear it clearly and then execute it to a way where the individual that you're leading, that your first chair or your primary leader, gives you the vision to walk through and move forward. When I talked to Seth, he gave 3 practical moves that really stuck with me. 1, ask good questions. And in my conversation with Seth, and it came up again when we talked to David Harris, is that, man, you've got to be ready to talk on a regular basis. You've got to be able to, as you're having these conversations, to ask good questions and ask them over and over again. You've got to be intentional. And let me say this in a practical sense, because you may say, listen, my primary leader doesn't necessarily have all the time in the world. You may have to be intentional about finding different ways to communicate your concerns. But one thing you cannot do is sit on them and not ask anything and not have those difficult conversations. So you've got to ask good questions. You've got to name trade-offs, and you've got to help the team understand what matters most today. If the vision is not clear to you, no one that you are serving is going to really be able to do their job. That's why this is so important. As you've got to help the team understand what matters most today. Prioritize how you can impact today, the time that you have today, to make tomorrow even better. Because the reality is, for many of us, we don't see vision. In fact, when we deal with vision, it sometimes gives you a headache. And I can do vision, but it's not the thing I just wake up in the morning doing. But when I see a vision, I don't always understand it. But if you have an understanding of what you need to do today, that's going to help you plan for tomorrow. That's a key distinction. Second chair leaders is often today leadership. That's the key. Second chair leaders are often today leadership. We don't always have the ability to see until tomorrow. In fact, my wife has that gift, and she'll say, well, babe, what's the plan? And I'll be like, I'm trying to get through today, let alone plan for 3 weeks from now. She has the ability to kind of just plan for different days and weeks and months, where I got to get from 8 o'clock to 8:01 to 8:02. And that's the unique gift that we have. We have an ability to singularly focus on what's right in front of us. That's what we're calling today leadership. And that's the beauty of being able to steady the day-to-day operations while the first chair individual or the primary leader holds the long-term direction. So your job is not to be frustrated by the fog. Your job is to create traction anyway. Regardless of what things look like, we've got to create traction. And this connects to our episode on clarity and reaffirmation. Clarity costs nothing, but confusion costs everything. As second chair leaders, we reduce confusion by normalizing check-ins. We talked about that earlier, naming priorities and closing the loops. When you see certain things that don't necessarily seem like they're going in the right direction, your job is to close those loops and make sure there is a connection. Remember, we talked about this when we talked about Jonathan. Jonathan didn't wait for perfect conditions. In fact, his dad was literally trying to kill his best friend. But in the midst of all of that, he moved with faith and courage in dangerous environments. He was able to be respectful. He was able to navigate those tensions and still understand that the mission was to serve the person that was leading at that time. So second chair leaders do that in organizations. You move forward with what you have and you make it work. That's what we do. We make things work. When we show up, things happen. So here's what it looks like in real life. Your leader says, we need to improve the culture. Okay, yep. And that seems really vague. But as a second chair leader, we translate, we have conversations, and we get to the point where we ask the question, what does better culture mean this quarter? What are the top 2 behaviors we need to reinforce? What are stopping and starting and continuing to make that happen? What does success look like by Friday? And family, those questions are how you turn fog into focus. You begin to getting your journal out, you start writing and being able to put some things in place to create traction for your organization and for yourself. So I want to give you some practical tips. Here's a simple tool you can use in your next meeting. Put it in your arsenal. I want to challenge you and try to say this in your next meeting. What are 3 priorities for this week? If it doesn't fit in these, it's a no or a not yet. 3 priorities for this week. This sentence is clear second chair leadership. What this does in your team meeting, it allows the people that are on your team to see that you're focused on getting us aligned in the vision, but also how we're making it practical to apply for where we are right now. Now, the last thing that Seth said that really kind of hit me that I can't walk away from, he said, coaching is not optional if your goals are actually big. Like if you don't have a coach, your goals are too small. Seth said it plainly. If you don't have a coach, you're leaving potential on the table. He went further. He went further and said, if you feel like you don't need a coach in an area, it's probably because you haven't set a big enough goal in that area. And y'all, that hit me because I am a natural lone wolf. I'm an introvert. I can do things by myself. But one of the things that I learned is that many second chair leaders do not lack talent. And let me say this again. The reason why you were selected to be a second chair leader is because you have talent. There's certain gifts, there's certain skills, there's certain things that you bring to the table that other people do not. But the challenge for a second chair leader is that we sometimes lack perspective and we lack honest feedback. We lack accountability. We lack a person who can see what we can't see. And family, that's what coaching does. It identifies blind spots. We need people, and not just our spouses, but we need people to look at those things and provide objective feedback. I said this in an earlier episode, I'm gonna say it again. Second chair leadership isn't for the weak. Second chair leadership requires work. It requires character work. It requires communication work. And it requires emotional work. So let me deal with some of the real things that we're talking about in leadership. One of the important things about coaching or having a counselor or having somebody that can share some of the things that you're experiencing or being a part of the second community. For many of us, we're not stuck because we don't have what it takes. We're stuck because we haven't confronted what's inside of us yet. We're not stuck because of our leader. We're not stuck because of the situations that's going on. We're stuck because we haven't dealt with the real things that make us who we are. We haven't confronted the areas in our lives where we have not had clarity. So as we conclude, I want to share the cash framework that Seth shared, the knowledge, the attitude, the skills, and the habits. If you have enough cash, you can get whatever you need. If you have the knowledge, the attitude, the skills, and habits, got where you are because of the cash that you have, the knowledge, the attitude, the skills, and the habits. But family, we can't get where we need to go without building more cash. You got to be able to increase your cash in the areas that matter. That's a practical way to think. If you want to get to the next level, you can't grow with jealousy. You need development. You've got to understand that there's growth that needs to happen, and it starts with you. So what's your next level that you want to get to in 2026? Not the title, the capacity. What do you need more of? Knowledge, attitude, skill, or habits? Don't try and do all of them at the same time. Pick one, then build a plan around it. In fact, find a coach to help you get there. Here's a simple way to start without overthinking it. Choose one skill you want to sharpen this quarter. Then find one person who's already strong in it. Ask for feedback once, maybe twice a month. I want to challenge you as you're doing so, measure your growth, and that, family, is coaching in motion. Remember, we talked to Pierre Quinn. He said, listen, ask for advice. Find an area we want to grow in your knowledge or attitude, skills, or habits, and find somebody that can help you get to that place. So, here are the 3 takeaways one more time. You can't bring clarity to leaders if you're unclear about where you're going yourself. 2, second chair clarity is translation. That means questions, trade-offs, and identifying today's priorities. And lastly, if the goal is big, coaching is a part of the cost. This is how second chair leaders, this is how people who serve as assistants or associates, vice presidents, create first place outcomes, not by fighting for the spotlight, by building capacity, by clarifying the moment, by leading from where you serve. Now you made it to the last part of the episode. I need to hear from you. Here's the question for the comments. What is your biggest challenge as a second chair leader right now? What are you facing? What are some of the things that you're dealing with? And I need you to be specific. I need you to be not Pacific. I need you to be specific. Is it unclear expectations? Are you dealing with a leader who can't make decisions? Are you carrying the weight without authority or being overlooked while managing that resentment? Are you trying to stay motivated? Are you leading peers who don't respect your work? Family, whatever it is, I want you to drop it in the comments. I need you to be specific. I'm reading each and every comment, and I'm thanking you because it's helping other people get an opportunity to see what we're building here in the Serving Second community. We're going to have a live episode very soon to share and talk face to face so we can deal with this in real time. So if this episode has helped you do 3 things. Number 1, subscribe on YouTube so you don't miss the next episode. Number 2, share this with one second chair leader who needs clarity. And 3, comment on your biggest challenge so we can start a real dialogue and let folks know how they can get there. As always, this is our mantra. The mission that I serve is bigger than my title. The mission that I serve is bigger than my title. This has been another episode of the Serving Second podcast. Thank you for rolling.